I honestly expected it to kind of like assault my taste buds a little bit more.
I don't recommend texting anybody after this.
I can feel it going down.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Whiskey Rebellion. We are back with a new show. Today we are talking about barrels and their influences. We have three products in front of us. We have Mellow Corn, which is an example of a whiskey that uses a used bourbon barrel. And then we have a barrel-proof Elijah Craig, which is a great example of a new charred barrel. And then we have a finished rye that was done in a rum cask. So in this case, they age it in a new barrel and then put it into a second barrel that's held Caribbean rum for years, and it influences the flavor of the whiskey. So we are going to start. Can you guys please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jeannie. Not a big bourbon whiskey drinker, but I'm up for the challenge.
I'm Mike. I'm new to the whole bourbon whiskey scene, and I'm excited to be here to learn a little bit about it.
That's great.
My name is Ryan. I've been into whiskey for about a year now, and it just really piqued my curiosity, and I've gotten really into it. I really enjoy learning about it and drinking it, and I'm excited to try some new ones today.
So I just met you the other day, and you were telling me that same thing, but how many bottles do you have at your house now?
Oh man, probably like 40 or so, 45. Problem is
Wow.
I love drinking here and asking you guys questions and picking your brains. It's not as fun when you're like at your house by yourself.
But you know,
What's your address?
we're all that's the after party.
45 bottles is a lot.
It is,
Like-
it is.
For a year's time to just start getting into it. And I'm not judging you much. It just shows that you're really getting into it. I'm not challenging you to do this.
No, yeah,
It
it's
takes a
great.
madman to do this.
You try enough whiskey and it has inspired me to almost like literally smell the roses more, because I want to pick out more notes and like try different things. It makes me, I literally like eat my food slower. I was at a friend's house and sniffed a whole bouquet of flowers because I wanted to feel like that floral note that you get from some Japanese whiskeys and stuff. It's great.
Today we're gonna learn a lot about barrels and their influence. And I think the best way to do this would actually to change the way we're ordering, so we start here. This is a barrel-proof whiskey. In this particular case, it's 127 proof. This is a perfect example of the true brand new charred barrel influence on a whiskey. So we're gonna start doing this.
Why not?
These barrel-proof Elijah Craigs are phenomenal. They really kind of shine what happens inside of the barrel as it's aging. Most products, until fairly recently, were never released at barrel proof. This is the only one I know of when I first started bartending, and it wasn't even around the first couple of years I bartended, was Booker's. Booker's was, I remember the first time I had it, I was like 22. The bartender that gave it to me wasn't like, hey, this is barrel proof. He probably didn't even know that it was barrel proof. He just knew that it was strong. At the time, 22, I was like, oh, it's a whiskey. You take it like a shot, and I bucked it. And about 20 minutes later, I was like, oh my God. I'd never been hit so hard by something. And since then, I've changed the way I drink, and I've learned what these things are, but more and more companies are releasing barrel-proof expressions, and I love it because you're actually tasting something that until fairly recently really didn't exist in the world. You want to take very small sips.
So being new to this, what does barrel proof mean?
It means that they dump the barrels and then they do not cut it. So if you look at like a standard bourbon, they're usually like 80 proof or 86 proof. They don't come out of the barrel that way. They'll dump the barrels and they'll proof the entire batch to see how strong it is. And then that gives them the ratio to figure out how much water they need to add to bring it down to their standard sail like proof. Okay. And in this case, they haven't done that. It's undiluted. And so it's bourbon in its purest form.
Speaking of barrel influence, do they publish like the gradation of char that they use?
Some people do, some people don't. I think Elijah Craig does some of the heaviest char out there. That's why I picked this particular one, because you can really taste what's happening in there. I don't recommend texting anybody after this. I feel like it could bring out some...
Oh. I can feel it going down.
Well, but it's nice though, isn't it?
It is nice.
Yeah. It's really
smooth.
sweet.
It's got a really
tastes good.
robust vanilla note, like
Yeah, I can
like a
taste that.
lighter caramel, but the vanilla for me is what's really powerful there.
So I literally picked this because it's pretty much as an intense of an example of what happens to a spirit when it's put into a barrel. The first use of a barrel imparts the most flavor from the wood. In this case, you're tasting kind of the char. There's like a peppery, I don't want to use the word burnt because that's not the right word, but it's something that we associate with cooked meat or other expressions that you can taste that in here. The idea of barrel proof bourbon for me is like intense enjoyment, but I want to spend, I don't know, an hour watching that expression change. So I would say let's just set this aside for a second, and then we're going to try the second one.
How long does it stay in the barrel?
In this particular case, it was 12 years. Most bourbons are more like 3 to 4 years for like the low end ones that we all drank too much in college or whenever. And then kind of the better ones that we associate in the middle price range are like 6 to 7 years. So the next product is kind of like a bartender's favorite. A lot of us use these for cocktails. This is a 100 proof whiskey, and it's called straight corn whiskey which basically is what bourbon is. But in this case, they use a used bourbon barrel. You cannot call a whiskey that was done in a used barrel bourbon because it's a used barrel. Sometimes when people use used barrels in the bourbon world, they'll call it light whiskey. In this case, they're not doing that. I think light whiskey is kind of the new craft word for it because it wasn't something that I had ever heard in my life until fairly recently, and they're doing these older age-stated light whiskeys. But mellow corn is something that sometimes people kind of giggle about because the label, it has that very 70s feel, and it doesn't look like an expensive product, and it's not an expensive product. I think here in Virginia this is $22 a bottle, but it's actually delicious. Younger bourbon style products have a sweetness. I mean, when you think about corn on the cob and you bite into it, it's very sweet. When you distill from corn, that takes on that bright, sweet note. And so you get to try this. Most people never drink this straight. And so I'm kind of excited to hear what you guys think about this.
It is sweet. Mm-hmm. It is sweet. Did not expect that.
I would not drink it straight.
It's okay. I'm not judging you much. I'm not trying to make you drink it straight. The whole point of this is to show you a lot of that spice and pepper and things that we got out of the other one, even though it's higher proof, comes from the barrel and from the char of the barrel. So after this gets dumped, they have to do something with the barrel. A lot of times those barrels go to other worlds, like tequila world or rum world or Japan for Japanese whiskey or Scotland. In this case, they're doing another bourbon style whiskey, but they can't call it bourbon. And so dramatic difference in flavor between these two, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
I honestly expected it to kind of like assault my taste buds a little bit more. Mellow is probably right, I guess. It's pretty low key. It's not as, I really expected a little worse, I guess.
I think it's a great product. And it is in a way a victim of its packaging.
Yeah.
But I kind of love the packaging because it does look like something almost historical at this point.
Yeah, it's unapologetically itself.
Yes, but it is absolutely like a bartender's friend. People that are in the kind of craft world, they really appreciate this. And in some ways, I think they're some of the only people that really know about it because the average bourbon drinker, when they're walking by, are going to go, Mellocorn, that sounds...
Yeah, let's not over that.
Right, but I like it.
Actually, to me, this is a little smoother than the first one.
Oh, see, I thought this was smoother. This was warm going down. This one was like fighting me.
Yes.
If that makes any sense.
It does. There is no right or wrong with whiskey, and that's the thing. It's all personal taste. As a bartender, if I was like, no, you must like this, that would be pretty shitty. I don't think that any particular product is necessarily better or worse than any other product to everybody. We all like what we like.
Which is why we have an array of options.
Actually, that's just because we need to pay our rent.
Oh, okay.
We can see the guy that's like, I want that $900 shot. I'm like, hey, dude. But so the last one is a completely different style of barrel. This is a rye whiskey that was aged in a new barrel, and then it's proofed down. And then after they've finished that aging process, they dump that whiskey into Caribbean rum casks. I don't know which rum that they use, but in this particular case, it's a very sweet rum because the finish of this, it almost tastes like maple syrup to me. So you're gonna hate it because you told me you don't have a sweet tooth at all, and you don't like sweet things. But I really like this whiskey, but I can't drink a lot of it. It's almost too rich for me.
This is yummy.
That's good.
Yeah, this is good.
There's like a brown sugar, like an overriding brown sugar thing, maybe a little like butterscotch.
It's
You are good at this.
Good. Uh-huh.
45 bottles later, look at you.
Here we are.
The first time that I had this, the actual bottle looked different. The labeling was gold, it wasn't green, and it almost had like this toasted coconut back flavor. And I think they've used different rum casks since then because it actually has a different finish than the first time I had the product like 12 or 13 years ago.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal to me, and this is something that I want to actually eat with pancakes or have with pancakes. It just reminds me.
Early in the morning.
Yeah, it reminds me of something that's breakfasty.
It is.
I've actually taken this and poured it over top of vanilla ice cream. Did not hate that at all. I am secretly somebody who wants to completely clog my arteries with ice cream, and this is yeah, you get a buzz while you're doing it. The nose of this one is like nothing else that I've ever had, and there's a lot of companies that are doing Caribbean rum cask products now, but none of them touch this one.
This is really
It was
cool.
very good.
I don't drink much rye. Like I generally don't like it, and the rum, I guess it's the rum, is doing a really good job of almost like covering that till the good parts of the rye show up. A little bit of like pepperiness, that spice that rye can bring. This is really cool.
It is like a.
Is he hired help?
You always.
So you can see very different profiles in all of these whiskeys. It's really interesting how it happens. Personally, I'm more of a straightforward when it comes to bourbon. I prefer the char and the pepper and the spice of a new barrel. This, I would say, for me, would be a great whiskey for cocktails.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to drink this straight, but I do appreciate it. It does have that bright, shiny kind of corn quality that you don't get out of this. And then this doesn't even relate to these. It's almost like a completely different category.
What's the price? You said like 20 for the mellow corn.
This is about 22. This is in Virginia, I think $79.99 now. Because that
Exactly.
80, if they did it at 80, that would be outrageous. This is around $100 a bottle.
And they drink this straight, typically?
I mean, you can drink it however you want to. I don't recommend anybody drink it any other way because to me that's a sipper.
And the mellow corn, you said you guys use it as a mixer a lot.
We do. So we do a lot of cocktails unwillingly because we're lazy and we don't necessarily want to make them. This actually makes a really nice old fashioned or Manhattan because some people who aren't necessarily here to drink strong flavored whiskey still want like a craft cocktail, and this doesn't quite impart all that spice and the pepper and things. So, but you drink whatever you want to drink, however you want to drink it, except for our show when we talk about not using.
That's when you're supposed
Yeah,
to listen.
the no ice show was serious, like because I do believe that ice kills all the great parts of whiskey, and that's why we did that show, because I don't want to continue this tradition of not caring what is the best thing for the consumer who is buying the product. And so if you haven't seen that one, you should watch it because it's really educational. It has a great title too.
Subtlety is the name
Yes,
of the game.
I'm a very subtle guy. Like that's the whole key to my nature.
Well, thank you very much for the
Yeah, this has
experience.
been
Thank you guys, I really
Great.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
And I will take this back.
All right.